So hi everyone, welcome to our session of Money Talk, making sense of the municipal budget. I'm Tara Baker, the city treasurer, and I'm really pleased to be here to offer our first budget education session. We heard that this type of information and experience would be valuable from our post-budget survey back in January of this year after we got done the 21 budget. And so we're here and we've put this together and we hope it's really valuable and useful for you. With me today is also Karen Newland, our manager of client services, and she's also going to be walking through some of the content about multi-year budgets and strategies at the end. So briefly, this is what we have planned for you today. I'll start by reviewing the basics of municipal service delivery and how the budget helps to guide what we do and the changes we have made to the budget process over the past couple years. And then we will spend some time on special considerations that are top of mind for council and city staff as we navigate through this year's process. And then I'll walk through a little bit about multi-year budgeting and highlight some of the improvements we've made in our continuous improvement journey. And then finally, we will end the session with a bit of a wrap up and kind of next steps on where we're going and how you can be involved in the budget process. So if we begin at the very basics of municipal government, municipalities are creatures of the province, and we exist through provincial orders, and we are governed by the Municipal Act as approved by the province. This legislation, among a number of other acts, guides almost everything we do. It tells us what services we have to provide, and in some cases, it tells us the appropriate level of service to provide, and it sets the rules and landscape that we operate within. One of those rules is that we must have a budget and it must be balanced. We cannot by law budget for a deficit or a surplus like other levels of government. The budget sets the financial guideline for each department to deliver their service to the community. It is the tool for council to add new services, new projects or initiatives, or to stop providing a service or change the level of service. As the outcome of this conversation, the budget then also sets revenue rates that will collect the appropriate amount of revenue to balance the budget. These rates include property taxes, water, wastewater, and stormwater rates, and also other user fees. Going back to service delivery and meeting community needs as the primary thing the city does, we have an approved strategic plan, and that was based upon significant community engagement to understand the priorities of our people and businesses collectively. The strategic plan groups these priorities into 5 pillars, as included here on the screen. Overall, we are striving to be future ready. What is important to know about this strategy is that it is nothing without a financing plan to implement these goals. So we have shifted our budget over the past number of years to be presented in this same way. The budget is the tool that sets the pace of how quickly we can go in providing services and completing these initiatives. The Powering Our Future pillar includes services like economic development and tourism, the farmers market, River Run, and the Sleeman Center. The Sustaining Our Future pillar includes corporate energy management, water, wastewater, and stormwater services, solid waste, parks operations, and planning and building. Navigating Our Future includes our transportation services, parking, and Guelph Transit. Working together for our future includes most of our internal facing departments like finance, HR, communications, IT, and legal. And then finally, building our future includes infrastructure planning and development, asset management, facilities management, recreation and community investment, social services and affordable housing, all of our emergency services, the Guelph Public Library, our long-term care facility, the Elliott, and also our funding of public health. Sometimes when I go over all these services, I'm still even a little bit in awe about how much we do as a city every day to provide these services that our community relies upon. So as I mentioned, this strategic plan, Guelph Future Ready, is where we get our marching orders. And this is a primary way that the community engages on the budget making decisions. From here, Council approved action plans for each of the pillars I just went through. And these action plans identified key performance indicators and strategic initiatives to be completed over 4 years from 2019 to 2023. The budget is just the tail end of this planning cycle, which provides the resources to implement these goals. So moving into more details, our budget is made up of two primary documents, an operating budget and a capital budget. The operating budgets are annual in nature and provide the funding for staffing and other materials and contracted services that are needed to deliver what we deliver to the community. So for example, I'm going to use Guelph Transit. The operating budget would include the salaries for the bus drivers and administrative staff, and it also includes the fuel and maintenance costs of the buses. And then at the end of each year, there may or may not be a surplus or deficit overall, and then those funds are transferred into the city reserves and reserve funds, which we'll talk about later. The capital budget is where we tackle the one-time infrastructure projects or priorities. And so typically at the end of a project, what's created is a betterment to a physical city asset. So for example, in Guelph Transit again, we need to replace the city bus fleet after so many years, and so they don't break down, and so we can continue to deliver service to people. And so the capital budget would include the bus replacement, buying new growth buses, and then also like the capital facility where the transit fleet is stored and the transit staff works out of. In the background, we are developing capital plans out 25 years as we need to plan for the growing population and significant infrastructure that comes with more people, including expanding wastewater treatment plant, new roads and pipes, new water services like water tower and new supply, and services that follow population growth like our solid waste collections, our growth in emergency services like ambulance, paramedic, and fire. These plans are all informed by service master plans that come forward to council and include significant community engagement as well. So shifting now into a little bit more about how the budget is pulled together. We need, when you think about all the vast services that I just went over, we need to be able to talk about these services in consistent ways so that when council's making decisions, they've got a common reference point to be able to make decisions. And so we like to talk about all of our services and our budget strategies in three ways, three pieces. We have our core service delivery to the current community. We have to then think about our core service delivery growth and those services we provide to a growing community. And then finally, our strategic community building strategies. So things where we're enhancing service or adding new services to what we do. And so when you think about each one of those buckets, we like to talk to council in that first bucket about asset management. It's such a significant driver of everything that we do, making sure that our assets are being maintained so that we're providing safe and reliable service. And we got to make sure that our employees are taken care of. We have inflation that we need to factor in on our base services. We typically in almost every year have legislative changes to our core services that we deliver, and we have to alter, and sometimes there's budget impacts related to those. We have climate change and our goals of 100% renewable energy, and we need to tackle those within our current service delivery. And then finally, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and that lens on our current services and how they need to shift and change over time with that lens. And then when we move forward to a growing community, our budget's really thinking about, again, legislative changes. We have population increases, and then with that comes immigration and demographic shifts. It means we're increasing our infrastructure asset holdings significantly. Currently, we have over $1.4 billion of assets that we maintain and take care of. And so as the city grows, that number is also going to grow. We're dealing with intensification challenges and the costs that come with intensification, more people in smaller areas, and how do we need to shift and address that? And then, all of those types of growth decisions are coming to us from our official plan, secondary plans, and our master plans. And so all of those processes start to funnel into the budget over time and as we go through those processes. And then finally, we look at then our strategic community building investments. And these are the things that you're really finding in our strategic plan. We want to look at things like shifting to our non-auto mode split. So getting cars off the road and people into transit and cycling and active transportation. We're trying to increase our tree canopy with our urban forest management plan. We're trying to increase trail and cycling connectivity. Again, think about that non-auto mode shift. We want better customer experience and we want to increase our business support. And these are just some of many of the priorities that we have as a city. And we think about how council needs to balance those new investments with taking care of what we already do. So moving into the capital budget now, so this is the 10-year capital plan based on our 2021 budget. And so our capital budget and forecast is presented as a 10-year plan to the public, but then as I said in the background, we're actually planning out 25 years. And a capital budget includes approximately 200 projects or more in any given year. And then those then roll down even further into sub-projects. And capital project funding requirements can really fluctuate from year to year depending on the size of the project and the number of projects. And so, so what's really in the background, what finance is trying to do is trying to fund capital on a flat or kind of consistent basis year to year so that we don't have these spikes that you're seeing on the slide hit the tax and our rates. And so really the 25-year plan allows us to ensure that we have stability in funding so that we can manage these capital project spikes up and down in any given year. So we look at capital funding over the 10 and 25-year horizon to flatten those requirements. And then we collect some funds in advance and then some funds in arrears using financial strategies and cash flow management over that period of time. And so one of the ways that we do that is really through our reserves and our reserve funds. So as indicated, we have a number of reserves and reserve funds that the city manages, and these are important tools in our broader financial management processes. Reserves are used in budgeting to average and smooth out tax and other rate impacts to the community over a long period of time. Limits, these limits spike in the tax base, and they give us flexibility to respond in the moment if we have an emergency. If you think about COVID, for example, they give us flexibility to time capital projects at the most opportune time and make sure that we're able to move forward kind of like when it's most conductive in terms of other departments maybe doing a project that it would be much easier to dig up a road once rather than come back and do it 2 years later because now the water pipe needs to be fixed. And then they also allow us to respond when upper levels of government offer grants that require matching funds. And so again, our reserves are a significant part of the budget and how we finance the budget over multiple years. So this slide is one that we like to show because it really kind of provides that link about budget and reserves, operating budget, reserves, and then the capital budget. Here if we think back to what I just said about stable transfers from operating and then flowing into the capital budget, so money from property taxes and rates and development charges and grants, they go into our reserve funds, and that's really that tap there that you saw. So that's the stable money that's going into the reserves over time. And then on the capital budget is really like that bucket that's pulling money out of the tub there. And those buckets can be different sizes in any given year. And so that's really like the conversation that's happening between the operating budget, which is putting money into the reserve funds, and the capital budget that's taking the money out of the reserve funds. And so one is stable and one, the capital budget, is variable. And that's how we balance the budget over time. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the revenue. So we don't have a poll because this is a taped session, but if you were to ask yourself the question on the screen, which is, what's your guess? How much of the 2020 budget or revenue is funded through property taxes? So how much of the budget is funded through property taxes? And so the answer is 53%. So property taxes are 53% of our overall revenue. And that might be surprising to some because a lot of people think that all of the city is funded by property taxes, which is really not true. Um, so when you think about our revenue sources, they're quite varied. We have revenue. So down here, like I had said, property taxes are 53%. And then the next in line here are our user charges. And so that includes our water, wastewater, and stormwater rates, but then also all the user fees. And then after that, our next most significant are grants and transfers from the province and the federal government. And those types of transfers, in terms of our paramedic services, there we get significant amounts for our social services that the county delivers on our behalf, and also public health funding and long-term care. So definitely very much reliant on other levels of government. And then there's also on our capital funding side a significant amount of grant revenue coming through the community building fund, which used to be the federal gas tax money, and then also the dedicated gas tax, which is the provincial gas tax funding that's for our transit service. And then as you can see on the screen, there's a whole number of other revenue types that we are managing here at the city. We have a number of different financial systems that these revenues flow through to, and they all flow into our one single bank account that the city finance team manages. And so you can imagine, trying to get a handle and keep a handle on all of these different revenues coming in and making sure that they're all getting booked and all getting managed in the right way. So with that, I'm actually going to pass the floor now over to Karen, and she's going to walk you through the balance of the presentation with multi-year budgeting.
Okay, thank you, Tara. So multi-year budget is essentially the process of looking at a budget over a span of more than 1 year. In the past, extra years were presented as a forecast and not as detailed budgets. Multi-year budget allows council to make best decisions with a view out beyond just a single year. It allows the city to plan ahead strategically. Multiple years are prepared simultaneously in a similar way as single-year budgets, reviewed and reapproved annually to adapt to changing needs where necessary. Why now for multi-year budget? The city, as we've been talking about with the strategic plan, we're now at that point where we have a solid strategic plan and we can start planning to move forward to achieving those goals, and the multi-year budget is the financing tool to help us get there. Previously, the city has been approving a 1-year operating and capital budget. Council was provided with a 9-year capital forecast as well. The budget was developed by staff with approval to recommend to Council by the executive team. After the budget was presented to Council, there was an opportunity for the public to provide input, and then Council deliberated and approved the budget. During the 2021 budget process, that was the first time that Council received a 3-year operating budget forecast that was inclusive of inflationary pressures, as well as growth or service-related requests directly linked to the implementation of the Council-approved strategic plan. A must-have for any municipality moving to a multi-year budget is to have a long-term perspective. The City of Guelph has worked very hard over the last several years to develop that long-term perspective. With the development of the community plan and Guelph's strategic plan, Guelph Future Ready, the city is now in a position to move into a multi-year budget approval. A multi-year budget provides many advantages. For starters, it allows for identification of future opportunities and challenges, provides more certainty on resources and stronger financial management. There is improved accountability and transparency over spending plan changes, and items can be referred to future year amendments. The administrative burden of staff and council is reduced, which creates more room for implementation of the strategic plan, service delivery, and continuous improvement. Value-add work has been increased by eliminating the annual budget process, and for the public, it provides great certainty, stability, and sustainability. This is not about setting the budget and not looking back at it again for 4 years. This is about the approval of a financial plan that encompasses the 4 years of council term and setting the benchmark for future budget conversations. There will be adjustments in the second, third, and fourth years that may drive from changed legislation, change in council direction, or changing economic conditions. The multi-year budget does not limit flexibility to deal with change. It creates a more transparent environment to handle the change by giving council the levers in which to adjust to accommodate that change compared to the original plan. Council may change the budget outlined in the budget policy if there's a provincial policy change or new regulation with a financial impact to the municipality. Council may have a change in direction and provide a new direction that has transpired after the approval of the multi-year budget. Those changes can be incorporated in the next budget when we go to confirm the budget annually. External economic decisions can have an impact on our budget. As well, the budget will need to be adjusted annually for any final changes to assessment growth numbers, as the budget will be prepared with those forecasts and it will change annually based on the actual growth that occurs in the city. Beyond the strategic plan, we also need to think of other influences that are impacting service delivery. And obviously right now, this includes the impact of COVID on our service delivery. We have a number of business lines significant impacted, including transit, parking, recreation, and culture facilities. Just recently, Sleeman Center was reopened. However, we still have not resumed river run operations, as an example. We were able to respond quickly to mitigate our revenue losses. If you think back to the revenue slide, only half of our revenue is property tax base. So we took a significant hit financially and continue to struggle today. We still project about $8 million in revenue deficit for 2021, and we need to factor this into the budget and the pace that we can start new things if we are still rebuilding to pre-COVID service levels. The other side of this is the increased cost to clean and protect staff and the community. This also continues to be a factor going into 2022, similar to every other business in Guelph. The budget needs a balance our inflationary pressures, including taking care of our aging infrastructure, maintaining our services for a growing population, and then think about the new city building things we want to do. The balancing of these various influences is the art form of budgeting. How do we, as a finance team, present the budget pressures and decisions in a way that leads to the best decision-making process and outcome for our community? This is our team focus, and you can learn more about this in the financial strategy documents that are published on the budget website under the budget strategies. Council members have varying opinions on these strategic priorities, leading to interesting debate. Some of the strategic initiatives that have varying debate amongst council, we have increasing the auto mode share, transit and active transportation network, 100% renewable energy, including the urban forest, electric fleet, energy reduction, investing it in digital infrastructure and customer service experience, and asset management, operations campus, and downtown infrastructure. We know that the digital investment will extend our current resources, deferring the need to add people to our complement to deal with providing more service. Investment in energy efficiency is not only good for the environment, but it can have fiscal savings as well. The LED streetlight conversion is a prime example. We are focused on looking at manual processes, automating where possible, and eliminating any redundancy or non-value added steps. Council directed a service rationalization in 2021, and a number of potential savings opportunities are built into this report that will be further investigated. The main point is we are always trying to find better and more efficient ways to do business. Fiscal constraint is always at the top of mind.
So with that, that's the end of our presentation. Thanks for taking the time to learn about how the city budgets and the strategy that we employ when we're building the budget. Thank you and have a good rest of your day.